In the forgotten folds of Asia's countryside, where the air is thick with incense and the wind whispers names no one remembers, there are stories too old to be written and too dangerous to be told. This is FolkFear, where every tale is stitched with blood, belief, and betrayal, drawn from the rituals of the dead and the silence of the living. Tonight, we take you to Yanshui, a decaying village built beside a cursed red lake, a place where mirrors don't just reflect, they remember. They remember the broken pact, the bride who ran, and the ancestors who never stopped watching. This is not a ghost story. It is a curse retold. So lock your doors, cover your mirrors, and never look too long into still water, because the bone mirror has been unsealed, and what was once promised must now be taken.
The road to Yanshui was barely a road at all. Lin Mei sat in the back of a rusting tuk-tuk that coughed smoke every time the wheels hit a stone, which was often. The hills here were green and rotting, overgrown with vines and weeping trees, the kind whose leaves dripped even when the rain had stopped. Every so often, the driver would glance back at her through the mirror, frowning like he knew something she didn't. "Almost there," he muttered, though he hadn't said a word since they left the city. "Once you see the lake, you'll know." And then she saw it. Yanshui, a village so forgotten it didn't exist on any modern map. It sat on the edge of a cratered lake the color of old blood, not red exactly, but rusted, poisoned, steaming faintly like a wound that never healed. The air burned with the smell of sulfur and wet stone. A single sign jutted from the earth, its paint faded, its characters clawed by time. Yanshui Village. The tuk-tuk sputtered to a halt. "I won't go past this point. I told you, I don't step into cursed ground." Lin Mei lifted her satchel without a word. She'd been warned already. Warnings came with the territory when you were a folklore anthropologist chasing lost rituals. Ghost brides, bone ash, ancestor offerings. It was the reason she came here in the first place. And besides, Yanshui wasn't just another academic curiosity. It was her mother's birthplace, a place no one in her family spoke of, a place struck from memory, sealed in silence. But Mei had uncovered a name, one name, buried in an old scroll in her university archives, a bride who vanished before her wedding, and that name was her grandmother's. That was enough to pull her here. The first thing she noticed as she crossed into the village was the silence. No birds, no dogs, just the soft squelch of mud underfoot and the wind brushing through hollow wood. The houses leaned at odd angles like they were trying to escape something. Red paper talismans flapped on doorways, faded and fraying. Some were nailed over cracks in the walls. Some were burned black at the edges. Every window was covered, every mirror gone. A woman appeared from the shadows of a crooked hut. She was wrapped in gray, her face deeply lined, her hair bound in a knot, so tight it seemed to pull her skin. Her eyes met Mei's, and for a moment they were mirrors too, reflecting something ancient and hollow. "You shouldn't have come," she said flatly. "The ancestors have not forgotten." "I'm just here to study. Folklore, ritual. I'm not here to cause trouble." "Trouble came long ago, and it wore a wedding veil." Lin Mei introduced herself, but the woman simply turned and walked, expecting her to follow. They stopped at a small house on the edge of the village, nearest to the lake. There, nailed into the ground and surrounded by ash, was a shrine. It was sealed shut with thick iron chains, rusted through but still strong. Taoist talismans blanketed the door. Some were new, most were ancient. "This is why you came," she gestured toward the shrine. "Is that where the bone mirror is kept?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "We don't speak its name." Lin Mei took out her notebook, scribbling down phrases, but the woman reached forward and tore the pen from her hand. "You do not write its name, you do not say it, not when the lake is red." Lin Mei turned slowly. The lake, which moments ago had shimmered a sickly gray, now rippled crimson, as if a layer of blood had surfaced, spreading wider with every heartbeat. And from across the water came a drumbeat, soft, hollow, like wedding drums played by no hands. "Someone broke the pact, and every generation since we have paid the price." May's breath caught. She looked again at the shrine. The chains seemed tighter now. The talismans writhed in the wind. And in the basin outside the door, just rainwater, she thought, her reflection stared back. But it was not her face. It was her face weeping. The next morning, the lake was quiet. Too quiet. Lin Mei stood barefoot just outside the little house where she'd been given shelter. The ground was soft, wet, as if something beneath the surface had stirred during the night. Her dreams had been filled with laughter, not joyful, but shrill, like wedding guests drunk on grief. And the mirror. Always the mirror. Not on the wall, but floating, endless, pulling her reflection apart until she didn't know which face was hers anymore. The old woman, Hu Po, she now introduced herself, was already sweeping ash from the shrine threshold when Mei approached. Her broom, bound with red string and fox hair, moved in careful, deliberate strokes. "You heard the drums, didn't you?" Mei asked. Hu Po didn't look up. "We all hear them. That is not the question. The question is, did the ancestors see you?" Mei paused, unsure. "I don't know." "Then you are already in danger." Hu Po stood upright. Her shadow stretched long across the shrine's chained door. This village once had 100 families, all blood-sworn to a pact older than the emperor's throne. Each generation we gave one child to the mirror. We did not question it. We did not mourn. It was not a punishment. It was a protection. "Protection from what?" Mei asked. "From them." Hu Po pointed toward the lake. It gleamed dull red beneath the morning haze, like a sleeping eye waiting to open. "The drowned, the lost, those who came before and never left." She walked over to the shrine, placing one hand against the thick wooden frame. "This is the mirror house. Inside is what remains of the bone mirror, sealed in talismans, bound in iron, and yet it pulses, it calls. You feel it, don't you?" Mei nodded slowly. She didn't want to admit how much she felt it, how every breath near the shrine made her skin tingle, how her heartbeat seemed to echo in her ears when she got too close. "I came here to study rituals. I didn't expect to find this much fear still alive." "Because it never died," replied Hu Po. She opened the door to the house beside the shrine and gestured for Mei to enter. Inside, the walls were lined with scrolls, bones, feathers, and red-dyed paper strips, a shrine to protection, or maybe desperation. The air reeked of sandalwood and thyme. On a small table rested a bundle of silk. Hupo unwrapped it carefully, revealing a faded ink painting. May stepped closer. It was a depiction of the Bone Mirror, round, large as a drum, its frame etched with crawling characters, its surface disturbingly reflective even in paint. It was not made by ordinary hands, Hupo whispered. It was forged from bronze and mixed with ground bone ash, human bone, the firstborns of the village long ago. Their essence was sealed into it by a Taoist sorcerer. In return, he taught the villagers to speak to their ancestors through it. And the price? Always blood, always the firstborn. May leaned in, mesmerized by the painted reflection on the scroll. It seemed to shimmer, despite the age of the ink. "When was the last offering?" she asked. Hupo's lips tightened. 60 years ago, when the bride refused her place. "The one who vanished?" "Vanished?" the old woman scoffed. "No, she was taken. But not before she betrayed the pact. She gave her maidservant to the mirror, switched places during the ritual. The mirror accepted the sacrifice, but the pact was broken. It knew." May's blood chilled. "What happened after that?" "Mirrors turned dark, faces twisted, children born without eyes. Processions walked into fog and never returned. It started with the water, then the dreams, and then the deaths." May looked back toward the sealed shrine. "Why not destroy it?" Hupo shook her head violently. "You don't destroy what holds the gate shut. You guard it, you bind it, you feed it if you must, but you never let it open." "And if it opens?" Hupo's gaze met hers, empty, dry, and full of uncried sorrow. "Then the ancestors come to collect what they are owed." A long silence followed. The wind picked up outside, howling through broken eaves like a distant funeral song. May exhaled slowly. "I want to see it." Hupo didn't answer, but the mirror pulsed beneath the shrine floor. And somewhere outside, the lake rippled, not from wind, but from something beneath it.
That evening, Lin Mei sat beneath a hanging oil lantern, surrounded by scrolls yellowed by smoke and time. The air inside Hupo's shrine house felt heavy, like it had absorbed too many prayers, too many secrets. Outside, the sky darkened. The lake didn't reflect the moon, it swallowed it. Hupo moved quietly behind her, placing a steaming bowl of bitterroot tea on the table. She didn't speak, but her presence was steady, a tether to the old world May had walked into. May unrolled the oldest scroll first. The script was not Mandarin. It was older, fluid, Taoist script, mixed with ancestral glyphs only scholars of folk religion might even recognize. But she'd studied this. She could piece it together. Slowly, carefully, she read aloud under her breath. "On the night when the red star bleeds, the mirror must see the soul of the bloodborn. Ask, and the gate shall whisper. Offer, and the land shall be spared." She paused. Bloodborn. The term for firstborn descendants. She flipped to the next scroll, one written in more modern script, perhaps only a century old. It detailed the process, a ritual known as the reflection offering. One child, always the eldest, would kneel before the bone mirror on the night of the blood moon. They would light 7 oils, burn ash from ancestor bones, and speak their question aloud. Just one question. The mirror would answer, and then something would be taken. Not by force, not in pain, but taken all the same. May leaned back, her breath shallow. They asked the mirror for protection and gave it a soul in return? Hupo nodded slowly. The mirror is not an object. It is a gate, and it remembers. But why continue the pact? Why not just let the past fade? Hupo stepped forward, her fingers trembling as she placed a smaller scroll before May. Because the land does not forget. The blood pact was bound to the village itself, to the lake, to the crops, to the weather. When the pact was honored, we thrived. No floods, no famine, no wandering spirits. But the moment it was broken, the village began to rot. Hupo's eyes flicked toward the shuttered window. They say the fog that rolls in now isn't made of water. It's made of regret. May swallowed hard. She wasn't a superstitious person. She believed in cultural memory, not living curses. But something about the way the village breathed, how the silence hung too long in every space, made her bones ache. There's more, Hupo said, almost reluctantly. She opened a carved lacquer box from the corner of the room. Inside was a family tree, etched on parchment in neat red ink. It looked like it had been handled for generations. At the very bottom, May's name. She stared. How do... You are of this place, Hupo said quietly. Your grandmother was the one who betrayed the pact. She was meant to kneel before the mirror. She ran, left the maid in her place, lied to the mirror. And blood, even when denied, echoes through time. May's fingers trembled as she traced the name above hers. Lin Shu Yin, her mother's mother, the woman no one ever spoke of. Your bloodline is cursed, and the mirror knows your face. A gust of wind battered the house. The lantern flickered. May stood, pacing, her thoughts spiraling. You're saying this is my fault? Not fault, Hupo whispered, but inheritance. May turned to the scrolls again. She saw now what she hadn't before. At the top of the first scroll, etched in delicate black ink, was a symbol used only in Taoist contracts, a binding seal, a pact, one made by the ancestors, upheld by every generation, and now broken. Suddenly, the lantern dimmed, the air grew cold, and from the water basin in the corner of the room came the sound of a woman crying. May stepped toward it slowly. The water was still, perfectly still, until a ripple broke across its surface, and in the mirror of that ripple, she saw the face of a girl in a red veil, weeping and smiling. The year was 1965, though no one in Yanshui would mark it that way. They called it the Year of the Veiled Sky, the year when the lake turned red too early and never faded. Lin Shuyin was 17. She was the village's firstborn daughter, third generation of the Lin bloodline, and the one chosen for the reflection offering.
The red veil was already sewn, the candles already blessed. The bone mirror was waiting. But Shu Yin didn't want to die. She was not cruel. She was not rebellious. She simply loved. A boy named Zen, the fisherman's son, whose hands were always warm and whose words tasted of cities she'd never see. At night they met by the lake's edge, whispering dreams into the steam. He told her she didn't belong in this place of ash and sacrifice. He told her she could run. She believed him. The elders, though, did not believe in escape. They began the rituals days early. Her food was purified, her body cleansed. She was made to sleep on rice straw beside the shrine, watched day and night by the priestess. But she had a maidservant, quiet, loyal, desperate to belong. Her name was Yulin. She was a foundling, taken in by the Lin family, raised like a shadow, never quite a daughter, never quite a stranger. And on the night of the blood moon, Shu Yin wept as she held Yulin's hands. "They will never miss me. They only need a face behind the veil." Yulin hesitated. Her lips trembled. "But the pact is blood, Shu Yin. It must be your name, your soul." Shu Yin kissed her forehead. "What is a name if the world never knew you?" And Yulan nodded. That night, under the veil, the bone mirror saw a girl kneel. Her hands trembled. Her question was whispered, "Will I be remembered?" The mirror, smooth as bone, shimmered once and answered with silence. And then it took. No scream, no wound, just a breath drawn in and never exhaled. The candles blew out. The priestess chanted prayers. The shrine door was sealed again. And outside, Lin Shuyin fled. She crossed the bridge before dawn. No one saw her go. By morning, her family burned incense and mourned her sacrifice, never knowing it was Yulan who had vanished. But the mirror knew. The next season, the rice fields turned black. Then the pigs birthed eyeless litters. Then the first ghost bride walked into the fog, never reaching her groom. The village elders gathered in panic. The priestess tried to restore the mirror's balance, offering pigs, goats, chickens. Even 2 children claimed to be bloodborne. But it was too late. The mirror did not want substitutes. It wanted Shu Yin. One night, the shrine door cracked. The talismans burned from within, and from the red lake rose a bride in soaked robes, her veil dripping, her smile wide. Not Yulen, not Shu Yin, but something else, something made of reflection and betrayal. That was the last year anyone in Yanshui dared to speak of the bone mirror aloud. The priestess sealed the shrine in iron and ash. The villagers boarded their mirrors. No one looked into water after dusk. And the name Lin Shuyin was carved out of every family record. But blood does not forget. And every generation since has seen a shadow in the basin. A girl in red, waiting, smiling, asking to be remembered.
Lin Mei didn't sleep that night. She lay in silence on a thin straw mat, eyes wide open, the weight of generations pressing against her chest. The wind outside keened like a mourning widow, and somewhere beyond the shutters, the red lake whispered. When she finally drifted into restless dreams, it wasn't rest she found. It was water. Endless, still water. She stood knee-deep in it, unable to move, unable to speak. The surface rippled not from her presence, but from something beneath. And then the reflection rose. A face just like hers, but older, colder. The skin too pale, the lips stitched shut with red thread. It mouthed one word: return. May awoke with a gasp, soaked in sweat. The morning light was weak, filtered through gray mist. She rose and moved to the basin in the corner, splashing cold water on her face, and froze. The water settled. Her reflection blinked, then smiled. But she hadn't. She staggered back, knocking the basin over. Water spilled onto the floor, crawling across the wood like veins. Hupo appeared in the doorway without a sound. "It's begun," the old woman said. What did I see?" May asked, her voice shaking. "It saw you," Hupo replied grimly. "The mirror?" "Not the object, the spirit within. It's tied to the lake. The shrine may be sealed, but water remembers." "But I didn't open it." "You didn't need to," Hupo said. "Your blood did." Later that day, May wandered the village, trying to make sense of it all. The houses looked even emptier now. Doors were bolted. Red talismans were replaced with fresh ones overnight. Many scrawled in panic, the brushstrokes jagged, rushed. She passed an old well, its stone lip covered in moss. Something drew her to it. She peered inside. Just darkness. Then water shimmered far below. A blink. A hand. A red sleeve rising from the black. She jerked back, heart racing. "You're being watched," came a whisper behind her. May spun around. It was a boy, no older than 12, barefoot, his clothes too big for his frame. "Who are you?" He pointed at the well. "Don't look into water. Even your shadow will lie." "What's your name?" May asked gently. "They call me Ghost Eye." "Why?" "Because I saw my brother in the river. He was already dead, but the water showed him walking back to the house. My father followed the reflection. He never came back." May swallowed hard. "How long has this been happening?" "Since the bride betrayed the mirror," he said simply. "Now it remembers us. Every face, every name, especially the ones who try to leave." He turned and walked away, disappearing behind rotted prayer flags that fluttered without wind. That night, May kept every bowl, every basin, every dish dry. She even drained the teapot and overturned the rice cooker. But at midnight, she heard the sound. Dripping, measured, rhythmic. From under the floorboards, a soft, wet tap, tap, tap. She grabbed the lantern, her hands trembling, and lifted the wooden slot beneath her sleeping mat. A thin stream of water was seeping up through the earth, and in it, clear as polished bronze, was a reflection. A bride in red, veil soaked, holding something in her hand. It was a mirror, and it showed Lin May's face, crying, laughing, changing. She fell backward with a cry, heart thundering. Hupo burst in, clutching a bundle of talismans. She knelt beside the wet floor, chanting under her breath, pressing the papers into the wood, sealing it shut. "You must leave," she said breathlessly, "before it takes hold." But outside, the drums had started. Faint, hollow, from across the lake. The procession was beginning again. The mist had thickened by the time Lin May reached the lakeshore. It clung to her clothes, cold and damp, like breath from unseen mouths. The air pulsed with something she couldn't name, not wind, not sound, but rhythm. Thump, pause, thump,
pause. The wedding drums. She wasn't supposed to hear them. No one was. Not unless the dead had invited you. But there she stood, barefoot in the black mud, as the sound grew louder, not echoing, but surrounding. Across the lake, something shimmered. First a soft red glow, then lanterns, floating, flickering. And then the procession emerged. No boats, no footsteps, just forms gliding across the water like shadows in silk. Bridesmaids in red veils, musicians in faded robes, a Taoist priest with a crooked staff carved from bone. Their eyes were hollow, faces pale as moonlight. At the center, the bride, veiled in crimson, gown soaked at the hem. Her hands held no bouquet, only a thread of red string tied at the waist, trailing behind her, vanishing into the fog. Lin Mei couldn't move, her feet rooted to the soil as the bridal party reached the edge of the lake and kept moving. Not onto land, into it. Their robes brushed over reeds and mud as if the world had no weight, no boundary. The bride's veil fluttered once, then turned toward Mei. Not just turned, faced. No eyes were visible, but she felt it, the knowing, the recognition. "She sees you," came Hu Po's voice behind her. Mei didn't turn. "Is this real?" "It's ritual," Hu Po whispered, "made real by memory and blood." "Where are they going?" "They reenact what was stolen, the wedding that was meant to appease the dead. But the bride was false, and now no groom waits. So they march every blood moon, seeking an ending they'll never reach." Maze felt tears sting her eyes. There was a deep sorrow in the procession, not rage, not violence, just longing. "Do they take people?" "Sometimes," Hu Po said. "The ones who watch too long, the ones who see their own face behind the veil." May's breath hitched. The bride was closer now. Too close. Her veil dripping, her feet hovering an inch above the mud, and in her hands, a mirror. The bone mirror. May's reflection swam inside it, distorted by ripples, her eyes hollow, mouth stitched shut. She stepped back, the mirror tilted. The red string snapped like a scream, and suddenly the entire procession stopped. The lanterns went dark, the musicians turned to ash, the bride cracked. Her veil dissolved into mist, her hands fell away, and the mirror dropped, sinking into the soil with a hiss. Silence. Just fog. Just water. Hu Po grabbed May's arm. "We have to go." "What just happened?" "You were offered something, but you didn't take it." "Offered what?" "A warning." Behind them, the lake churned, slow at first, then faster, red mist rising like steam. "What happens now?" Hu Po's voice was barely a whisper. "The mirror is waking, and it's searching for the soul it was promised." "Me," Hu Po nodded. "It remembers your grandmother's question, and now it wants your answer."
The shrine was humming, not with sound, but with pressure, a low, pulsing weight in the air, like the sky itself had inhaled and refused to exhale. Lin Mei stood before the chained doors. The talismans, once firm and crisp, now curled at the edges. Their ink had begun to bleed, as if crying black tears. "It's leaking,"
Hupo whispered. What is? Memory, she said. Grief. Hunger. May reached out instinctively and touched one of the talismans. It was warm. Too warm. And then it crumbled in her hand. Hupo gasped. Do not touch it again. The mirror knows your skin now. But May didn't step back. Something was pulling her forward. Not physically, spiritually. A quiet summoning that thrummed in her chest. I need to see it. No one sees it and stays unchanged, Hupo said. The last person who opened the shrine walked into the lake the next morning. She left her shoes on the shore. May turned. What if the only way to end this is to face it? Hupo looked at her, old eyes brimming with unspoken stories. Then you must go alone. She handed May a string of blackened prayer beads and stepped back. If you hear your name, do not answer. With trembling hands, May removed the latch. One chain, then another. The final lock creaked open, and the door exhaled. And the air inside was not air, it was breathless. The room was small, circular, lined with decayed wood and clawed etchings. Candles once used for rituals had melted into pools of red wax. The walls were stained, not with soot, but with something darker. And at the center, the bone mirror. Round, silent. The bronze frame was cracked in places, but still held its shape. Symbols circled its edge, not words, but curses. The surface shimmered like still water. May stepped forward. Her reflection was there, but only for a moment. Then it shifted. A face appeared. Not hers, a child, then a bride, then a corpse. The mirror blinked and spoke, not aloud, but inside her. Why did she lie? May staggered back. What are you? The promise. You mean Yulan? The mirror shimmered. The corpse child bride smiled. No, I am the debt. Suddenly the walls shook. Candles burst into flame. The surface of the mirror rippled violently, and from its depth a hand pressed against the glass. A hand of bone and silk, fingernails red with ink. May screamed and stumbled out of the shrine, falling into Hupo's arms. The old woman chanted furiously, slapping new talismans on the door, refastening the chains. The mirror pulsed once more. Then, stillness, just as before. But May knew now. It wasn't sealed. It was waiting. It spoke to me, May said, breathless. It showed me everything. Then it's chosen you, Hupo whispered. May looked up, eyes wide. Chosen me for what? The old woman stared toward the shrine. To finish the ceremony, to pay the price that was denied. And if I don't? Hupo didn't answer, but behind them, the ground beneath the shrine began to bleed. Just a single drop of black water, crawling toward May's feet.
The red moon rose without warning. No trumpet of wind, no shift in bird song, just a sudden, pregnant silence, as if the night itself had forgotten how to breathe. Lin Mei stood in the middle of Yanshui's crumbling square, watching the villagers light red lanterns with trembling hands. No one smiled. No one sang. This was not a celebration. It was a surrender. The Blood Moon Festival had returned. Once, generations ago, it had been marked with feasts, firecrackers, and offerings of fruit, a time to honor the ancestors, a time to thank the dead for their silence. Now, it was a night of terror, a night the village simply survived. "You shouldn't be here," Hupo whispered as she approached. "It's my blood they want. I should face them." Hupo held out a folded red robe. "Then wear this. It will confuse the spirits, delay their recognition." May took it. It smelled of old incense and something faintly metallic, not quite blood, but close. As she dressed, the villagers formed a circle around the shrine. Their eyes never met hers. Some prayed. Others wept quietly. A few held mirrors, backs turned to them, as if daring the spirits to look first. The drums began again. Hollow, slow. Boom. Boom. A man stepped forward. His hands shook as he offered a basket of rice soaked in wine and ash. Then a woman laid a lock of her child's hair on the shrine steps. One by one they came, each offering something precious, something personal. But the door to the shrine did not stir. The chains remained still. "It wants more," Hupo said. "What more can we give?" May asked. Hupo turned to her. "Your question." May felt her stomach knot. "What do you mean?" "Every bloodborn asks the mirror one question during the offering. It is how the pact begins and how the mirror decides the price." "What if I don't ask?" "Then it takes anyway, but blindly, and not just from you." The wind picked up, the lake hissed, and from the forest behind the village came the sounds of bells, wedding bells. The procession was returning, this time not from the lake, but from within. The villagers scattered, diving behind doors, sealing windows. Only May stood her ground. "What should I ask?" she whispered. Hupo did not answer, because Hupo was gone, vanished. May stood alone now, beneath the moon that bled like an open wound. The air around her thickened, as if the village itself was watching. And then the mirror spoke, not from the shrine, but from every reflective surface around her. The lantern glass, the water dripping from the eaves, the silver offering plates. "Ask." May swallowed hard. Her voice was barely a whisper. "What happens if I run?" The mirrors rippled, and then laughter. Not mocking, not cruel, just sad. Deep, endless sorrow, like an ocean grieving its own depth. A whisper followed. "Then your shadow will stay." A lantern near her burst into flame. The shrine door creaked. The first chain snapped. Clang. The second chain unwound on its own. Clink. The final lock fell to the ground. The shrine door opened, just a crack, and the smell that poured out was not of death, but of birth, as if something ancient had just opened its eyes and remembered her name. The shrine door hung open like a mouth mid-prayer. Lin Mi stood before it,
robe clinging to her damp skin, the red moon casting everything in shades of bruise and blood. The villagers had vanished into their homes. Even Hupo was nowhere to be seen. It was just her now, and the mirror. She stepped inside. The air was still, thick but not stale, fragrant. Sandalwood, burned bone, melted wax. The bone mirror waited at the center, larger than before. Or maybe it was simply closer. Its bronze frame shimmered with age, its surface too still. Not glass, not metal, not water, something in between. A surface that remembered every face it had swallowed. 7 bowls surrounded it, each carved with old sigils. Dried petals floated on the surface of oil, unmoving, suspended like trapped spirits. A thin brush lay across a folded cloth. Beside it, a knife. Me knew what to do. The knowledge wasn't taught, it was inherited. She knelt, took the brush, and dipped it into the oil. Her hand trembled as she painted a ring around her own eyes, like the brides of old. Then the knife. One shallow cut across the palm. The mirror reacted instantly. Its surface shimmered. The symbols along its edge pulsed red, as if drinking. May pressed her bleeding hand to her chest and whispered, "I am Lin Mi, granddaughter of Lin Shuyin. I offer my blood to complete what was broken." The mirror trembled. A voice emerged, not from it, but from around her. One question, one answer, one price. Her lips parted, but she hesitated. So many questions. Why her? Why now? Would the sacrifice end the curse? Would forgiveness come? But what slipped from her mouth surprised even her. Was she sorry? Silence. A single ripple across the mirror. Then, an image emerged. Not a reflection, a memory. Lin Shuyin, younger than me had imagined, fragile, standing on a riverbank in the rain, barefoot, clutching her own wedding veil. "I didn't mean to betray anyone. I just wanted to live," the vision whispered. "They would have forgotten me anyway, but she, Yulan, she was always loyal, too loyal." The image dissolved. Another face formed. Yulan, veil drenched, lips sewn shut. But her eyes, they weren't angry. They were empty. Hollowed out by betrayal, yes, but also by obedience. The mirror showed no blood, no death, only sacrifice. Voluntary, tragic. She gave herself, willingly, May whispered. "And so must you." "What does it want?" she asked. Her own reflection surfaced, pale, tired, a thread of red around her throat, growing tighter. "An ending." May rose slowly. She walked toward the mirror, step by step, until her nose nearly touched its surface. And there, for a fleeting second, she saw every ancestor behind her, rows upon rows, brides and mothers and grandmothers, all silent, all watching, all waiting. "Then let it end with me," she whispered. A final breath. She pressed both hands to the glass. It burned. Light erupted, not white, but red. Not cleansing, but consuming. The shrine shook. The mirror cracked. And somewhere in the village, the wedding drums stopped. No echo, no mist,
No bride, just stillness. The ritual was complete. Or so she thought.
The mirror was cracked. The silence inside the shrine stretched long and heavy, as if the very air mourned what had just occurred. Lin Mei stood alone, palms blistered and red, her breath ragged. The bone mirror's surface had stopped shimmering. But something in the room hadn't settled. It had shifted. Behind her, the door creaked open. Hu Po entered, slow, hesitant, holding a bowl of black salt in one hand and a red thread in the other. "It's done," Mei whispered. Hu Po said nothing. "I saw her. I saw them all. The pact is complete. I offered myself." Hu Po stepped closer, her face unreadable. "No," she said softly. "The mirror never wanted your death. It doesn't trade in flesh. It trades in lineage." Mei's breath caught. It wanted a continuation. Hu Po set the bowl down. "Your grandmother didn't just flee her offering. She fled while pregnant." The words struck like thunder. "You were born into this not just as a descendant, but as a debt, a living extension of a broken ritual." Mei backed away. "You knew?" Hu Po nodded. "I was her maid's cousin. I helped Yulan dress the night she was taken." Mei's knees gave out. She collapsed beside the cracked mirror, unable to speak. "The mirror did not want you dead. It wanted you bound." "Bound how?" The old woman turned toward the altar. From a hidden compartment beneath the floor, she lifted a bundle wrapped in red silk. Inside, a bridal veil, old and brittle, and a chain, delicate but unbreakable, forged with Taoist symbols etched into each link. Every reflection offering ends with a wedding. "To what?" Mei asked, voice barely audible. "To the village, to the pact, to the mirror." "No." "It's the only way to seal it, not end it, contain it. The ritual doesn't destroy the curse. It passes it back into place, where it waits for the next bloodborn." "I didn't agree to this," Mei said, rising to her feet. "You knelt, you bled, you asked." Mei stared at the cracked mirror. Her reflection was split, not broken, but divided. In one shard, she saw herself in the robe. In another, the bride in red. They blinked at different times. "It's already begun," Hu Po said quietly. A sound outside. Not drums. Laughter. Children. Playing. Mei rushed out. The village was different. Doors were open. The rice fields shimmered gold. The red mist was gone. The lake was calm, reflective. Children played by the water, laughing, chasing fireflies. But something in their shadows was off. Mei turned to Hu Po. "Why does it look healed?" "Because you took the place that was denied. The ancestors are satisfied. For now." Mei looked down at her own shadow. It was wearing a veil. Her mouth went dry. "What happens next?" "You live," Hu Po said, "in the village, as guardian, as gatekeeper." "And if I leave?" Hu Po's eyes darkened. "Then the mirror will go with you." Mei stared at the horizon. So beautiful, so still, so temporary. And behind her, the shrine door gently closed, all by itself. One lock clicked back into place.
The veil on the altar swayed, even though there was no wind.
The fog returned on the seventh night. Thin at first, harmless. A silver mist curling gently through the rice fields, slipping over rooftops like the breath of sleeping ancestors. Lin Mei stood by the lake, lantern in hand, watching. She had taken her place as the village's new gatekeeper, guardian of the mirror, blood-born bride of the pact. The villagers greeted her with respectful silence now. They left offerings at her doorstep, bowls of rice, coins, dried plum blossoms. She said nothing. She accepted it all. And still, the fog came. That night she heard the bells again, soft, measured, floating over water. Not from within the village, but from across the lake. She followed the sound, alone. Lantern held low, she stepped through the trees at the water's edge. The mist grew thicker. And there, on the far side of the lake, they appeared. Not clearly, not yet, just outlines. Red, processional, floating. No, she whispered, not again. But the mirror's rules had always been clear. One offering does not erase the debt. It only resets the clock. The wedding ghost was returning, slowly, predictably. And this time, they carried something. A sedan chair, draped in crimson silk. It hovered just above the lake, suspended by nothing. And within it, movement. A figure. Hidden. Still. A new bride, May murmured. But no, not a new bride. Her. The figure turned inside the sedan. The silk parted. And Lin Mei saw her own face. Pale, veiled, eyes closed in waiting. She staggered back. The lantern fell from her hand and hissed out in the wet grass. When she looked again, the wedding had vanished. The lake was still. No sound, no reflection. Just herself and her own breath. Behind her, a rustle in the trees. She turned sharply, only to find Hupor standing there. "You saw them, didn't you?" the old woman said softly. May nodded. "It's begun again. How long until it comes for real?" Hupor sighed. "It always starts in fog. Then comes the music. Then the bride walks the village, and someone always answers her call. Who? Whoever sees their own face beneath the veil." May stared out at the water. "I was supposed to end this." "You were never meant to end it. You were meant to carry it." May's voice broke. "Then I'm just another chain?" "No," Hupor said. "You're the lock." But May felt no safety in that, only weight. That night, she returned to her hut and covered every reflective surface, bowls, pans, lanterns. She even drained her teacup before bed. But still, when she blinked, she saw the veil, not on her face, but inside her eyes. And in her dreams, she walked through fog, barefoot, smiling, as red lanterns floated ahead, leading her toward a groom she could never see. The lake called to her just before dawn, not with words, with dreams, with pull. Lin Mei woke before the birds. The fog had settled low, clinging to the ground like wet silk. The moon hovered pale above the water, no longer red, but drained, ghostly, distant. She rose in silence, barefoot, her robe damped from mist. She didn't light a lantern, didn't call for Hupo. She walked, past the shrine, past the withered trees, to the edge of the lake that had haunted generations. The surface was flat, perfectly still, but the air moved, whispered, and she heard them, not voices, breaths, as though hundreds of mouths just beneath the surface were exhaling in unison, waiting. She stepped in. Cold embraced her ankles, then knees, then waist. With every step forward, the world behind her fell away. The trees, the sky, even the fog. The water swallowed sound until there was nothing. Then she sank. No struggle, no resistance, just gravity giving in to something older. The lake pulled her down like a womb reclaiming its child. And below, there was light. Not bright, but blue, soft and flickering, like lanterns seen through tears. The lake of the dead was not empty. It was full of brides. They floated in slow circles, their red veils flowing like ink, faces pale and eternal, eyes closed as if in prayer. Some held mirrors, others held bones. One clutched a bundle of blackened hair. May drifted among them. They did not speak, but they knew her. Each one turned as she passed, their veils lifting gently in her wake, until she reached the center. There, on a stone platform that rose from the lakebed, sat the bone mirror, whole again, uncracked, waiting. She stepped toward it. This time her reflection did not appear. Instead, she saw a young girl, no more than 13, hair braided, cheeks flushed. Her own mother, standing in a hallway whispering to someone behind a door. "We never talk about the village. She must never know what my mother did." A man's voice replied, "Some things are better buried." The vision dissolved. Another surfaced. Her grandmother, Lin Shu Yin, older now, worn by guilt, sitting at a riverbank, carving a prayer into the mud with a stick. "Forgive me. Let the mirror forget." But the mirror remembered. It always remembered. The lake pulsed around her. The brides began to circle faster. One of them reached out. May turned. It was Yulan. Her lips were still sewn shut, but her eyes, they pleaded. Not for freedom, not for revenge, but for release. "You want to rest," May whispered. The lake echoed, "Rest, rest, rest." May placed her hands on the bone mirror. It burned cold. "Then take me instead," she said. "Let this be enough." But the mirror pulsed once and answered, "Not death, inheritance." "What do I inherit?" "The remembering." The lake grew dark. The brides faded into mist. The light dimmed, and May felt herself rising, not floating, being returned, as if the lake had examined her, weighed her, and sent her back to the world with a new burden. Her eyes opened to gray sky. She was lying on the shore, soaked and shivering. Hupo stood over her, weeping quietly. "You saw them," the old woman said. May nodded, teeth chattering. "What did they want?" May stared at the horizon.
to be remembered. Behind her, the water stilled, but in every ripple she now saw faces, hundreds, some familiar, some waiting.
They came with a mist, not walking, not gliding, arriving, like breath returning to lungs, like memory returning to a grieving mind. The ancestors. Lin Mei stood in the village square, barefoot, hair damp with lake water, a red sash tied loosely at her waist, not in defiance, but in mourning. She could feel them gathering, not in front of her, but behind her, in every doorway, every puddle, every mirror left uncovered. The air had changed, not colder, fuller. The weight of names, the burden of remembering. Hu Po lit a single lantern and whispered, "They've come to collect what was denied." "I gave myself," Mei said. "You gave your name, your blood, but not your life." Mei turned slowly. The shrine behind her was glowing faintly, its doors closed but trembling. Then the wind stopped, and the mirror spoke, not aloud, but from every crack in every surface. She ran, she lied, she broke the vow, and now you are all that remains. Lin Mei stepped forward. "Then take me, if that's what it takes to end this." The mirror pulsed once. "Will you give your body?" "Yes." "Will you give your soul?" "Yes." "Will you give your reflection?" Mei faltered. "What does that mean?" The mirror answered with silence. Then, movement. Her shadow peeled from the ground. It rose, lifted, and stood across from her. Her same face, her same posture, but the eyes empty. It tilted its head and smiled. The ancestors circled now, silent brides, pale grooms, the air heavy with incense and grief. One final voice echoed, "A lie broke the mirror, a truth must restore it." Mei stepped forward. Her reflection did too. They met at the center. And as the villagers watched from their shuttered windows, the mirror lifted from the shrine, floating into the air. Mei turned to Hu Po. "If I give it, what happens to me?" "You will live, but not all of you." The reflection extended its hand. Mei took it, and with that touch, her eyes flashed, her breath halted, and the mirror shattered. Not violently, quietly, like old glass finally allowed to rest. The shards did not fall. They dissolved into dust. The wind returned, the fog lifted, and the ancestors were gone. No trace, no echo, just the red sash drifting to the ground, weightless and warm. Mei collapsed to her knees. Hu Po caught her. "It's done," the old woman whispered. But Mei's voice was far away, hollow, changed. "No," she said. "Now I remember everything." The mirror was gone. Not hidden, not sealed, gone. But Lin Mei was still here. Days passed. The lake remained calm. The villagers began to smile again, cautiously, like children stepping onto ice that once cracked beneath their feet. No fog rolled in, no red moon rose, no processions walked across the water. The children laughed louder, the rice grew taller, and for the first time in generations, no one covered their mirrors, except May. In her home at the edge of the lake, every reflective surface remained draped, not out of fear, but out of respect. She remembered too much. The names, the faces, the weight of promises passed down like heirlooms no one asked for. Hu Po came to her often, brought her tea, sat beside her in silence. On the 7th morning, the old woman asked, "Do you feel free?" May stared out at the water. "No." "Do you feel cursed?" "No." "Then what do you feel?" May took a long breath. "I feel carved." Hu Po nodded slowly. "That's what memory does. It hollows, but it leaves shape." That evening, May walked to the shrine. Its door stood ajar. The chains rusted through, useless now. The space where the bone mirror had rested was empty, but not clean. On the floor, in soot and dust, a single handprint remained. Small, female, her own. She didn't cry. She simply knelt, placed her palm beside it, and whispered, "You're not forgotten." She rose and left. Behind her, the shrine settled with a soft groan, wood adjusting to the silence. And as she stepped back into the night, a wind stirred the lake. For just a moment, a single ripple. May turned and saw her reflection in the water. It smiled. She did not. The ripple passed. Her reflection returned to normal. But she understood now. The mirror had not been destroyed. It had been passed on, a part of her, watching, remembering, waiting for the day another child in another forgotten village would kneel before still water and ask, "What happened before me?" And when that question came, May would answer, not with fear, not with silence, but with truth. Because the curse had never been death. It had always been the burden of knowing. And now, she carried it. The bone mirror had cracked, but it had not disappeared, only changed form. And it would never forget what was promised.